afternoon, everybody. Hey, I'm Rosalind. I am the host moderator slash community engagement coordinator for Waking Giants. Just, give you a little lunch and learn, a little chit chat with the district attorney, that's this area, Travis County District Attorney candidate, José Garza here. So just a quick run through some housekeeping rules. I mean, Zoom's been around for a minute now. We're kind of synonymous with Zoom and Corona or COVID-19. And so do us a huge favor. We're all adults here. I do have the executive function to mute your mics, but I expect you guys to be pretty cool about muting and unmuting your mics as see fits. We'll have a Q&A time, so please do us a huge favor. There's a chat box in the Zoom function. It's a little speech bubble. If you could do me a huge favor, I'm going to drop a little message in there. You can use that to ask myself questions to ask Mr. Garza. Again, Waking Giants is a social impact company. This is one of the many things we've done over the course. We've had chats with Texas State Senate candidate Judge Sarah Eckhart, Delia Garza, she's a candidate for county attorney. And now we have Jose, got to be informed on what's going on if you're going to make certain choices. So without further ado, we do also have the author Jennifer Harvey, who wrote Raising White Kids. She's going to be on next week. So we got some interesting folks come through here that we get to have chit chats with. So how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I always answer everything with I'm alive, and that's not morbid at all. It's just like the base level of gratefulness to be alive,
Indeed.
Yeah. So I'm curious about you, Jose, because you're from Laredo.
Well, I was born in Laredo. That's and I was actually raised in San Antonio, just down the road. My folks left Laredo when I was like 2.
Okay.
And I grew up in San Antonio. If anybody's familiar, I went to Thomas Jefferson High School, home of the Mighty Mustangs. And, came to UT, came to Austin for the first time in 1997.
Okay.
And then, from that point on, my career and my life have kind of been all over the place. I moved to Washington, D.C. for about 5 years, where I went to law school, worked for a member of Congress. When I graduated from law school, I moved back to Texas, and I moved to Del Rio, Texas, a little town on the border between Laredo and El Paso, way out in West Texas.
Yeah.
And I worked there as a public defender, both first at the state level and then at the federal level.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not even done. I mean, that was just like halfway point. So
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I was raised by a single mom, and she worked so hard to give me and my brother the gift of travel. I mean, she saved every year so she could take us somewhere, and really encouraged us to explore the world outside our own neighborhood. And to dream beyond our own neighborhood. So, the neighborhood that I grew up in is still who I am, and will always be my heart and my home. But I've been really fortunate to do some good work, I hope, in a few places.
So that doesn't sound like it's all over the place. It sounds like, that going out to come back was kind of instilled in you from a very small age,
Absolutely.
That's what it sounds like. Her sacrifice instilled that ability to come and go, so I don't think it's like off the radar in the sense of not being linear. It sounds pretty linear to me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you are San Antonio, and now you live in Austin, and now you're in a time where San Antonio and Austin are kind of slowly but steadily meshing together as this buildup is happening among I-35. I'm really curious on your seat and having that experience of leaving and coming back, and also being from this area and watching this area grow and change. I'm really interested on why district attorney. Why are you running for this seat? Like what is it in respect to the impact of this area?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I love Austin. Austin is home. I have two small children that, that my wife and I have made the decision um, we made the decision a long time ago to raise here. And I've always loved Austin. I'll tell you just a quick story, and then I'm going to answer your question, but I want to tell you a story. My wife and I met in Washington, D.C.
Mm.
And the first time that I brought her home to San Antonio to meet my friends and family, it was kind of a big deal. And so I was talking to my best friend, and we were trying to, kind of scheming, like, where should we take her to impress her in San Antonio? And my friend said to me, he said, my friends call me Joe. He said, Joe, why don't we just take her to Austin and tell her it's San Antonio? So, no, but I've always loved Austin, and excited for this to be our home. So, I started my career on the border as a public defender, as I mentioned. And that job, that experience really had a profound impact on my worldview, on who I am as a person. And I was really, quite frankly, really shocked, I think, by what I saw in those jobs.
Mm.
And what I saw was a criminal justice system that first and foremost weighs most heavily on working class people and people of color. I spent a lot of time during those parts of my career in state jails, in county jails, in federal prisons. And I can assure you that they are not filled with wealthy people. They're not even filled with the middle class.
Right.
And they are also predominantly filled with people of color. And that was shocking to me. But the other thing that I learned in that experience that also shook my conscience is the way that we use our criminal justice system, our criminal legal system in this country. Mm. And what I saw was that we use that system like a rug. And when we fail people because of our broken mental health system in this state, in this country, or our broken healthcare system in this state, in this country, or our failure to invest in education or in opportunities for good jobs for people, when we fail people, we just sweep them under the rug of our criminal justice system, so we don't have to see our own failings as a society. Mm. But every person who came through my door had been let down in some way by all of us. Mm-hmm. And that had a profound impact on me. Mm-hmm. I, as I mentioned, after working on the border, I actually had the opportunity to go back to Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough to serve in the Obama administration, and then came back to Austin, and since then have been leading Workers Defense Project here in town. Mm-hmm. And through that work, which is movement work at Workers Defense, we organize low-wage working people, predominantly undocumented working people. And through that work, I started to see just the incredible power that regular people have, that our members at Workers Defense have, that working people across the state have, to change their community. And I saw the progress being made with the election of John Crusoe in Dallas, who is a reform-minded DA, with the election of Joe Gonzalez in San Antonio, who is a reform-minded DA, and I could see what was happening around me right here in Travis County. I could see with my own eyes the fact that 9% of our population here is Black, but 25% of our jail population is Black. I could see that every day. Right.
But what's so ironic about that too is like you saying that you could see that, and one would assume that because you have a law degree and a law background, you see that from your experiential thing. But one thing that I've noticed in every major metropolitan city, in their newspaper or their news channel has a mugshot gallery.
Yep.
And this isn't like anecdotal evidence. If you scroll through these galleries, it's not wealthy people, it's not white people, it's extremely poor people of color, and it's just like, it's specifically Black people. And it's just so I it's odd that you say that, but I, as a person who does not have a law degree, can still see that factually every single week,
Yeah,
So, a lot of what people don't realize, a lot of this is public information and they just don't seek it.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I didn't learn any of that because of my law degree. I learned it from being in our community, and working in our neighborhoods in Travis County, and as you said, from just picking up the newspaper. And so, the culmination of all of those experiences left me feeling a deep sense of disappointment that right here in the most progressive county in the state, that we're not doing more, that we're not a leader on these issues, but also a profound sense of hope that I know we can be. I know what our communities are capable of because I've seen it. Whether it was workers' defense members fighting with other members in our community for the Freedom City policy or other progress that we've made, I know what we're capable of. So that's what leads me to run for this office. I believe Travis County should be a national leader when it comes to criminal justice reform, and I think we can be.
Okay. I mean, but the seat's got some drama on it though. There's you walking into it's got a lot of drama sprinkled all over, not really sprinkled all over, more like smothered in it. And I'm really curious on, so you talk about Workers Defense Fund, you talk about undocumented. I mean, there's a lot going on in Austin. One of the things that I noticed, I used to volunteer in the Travis County Corrections Jail, just to give you an idea. And sexual assault was that's a part of incarcerated culture.
Yep.
And it's sad that you even have to say incarcerated culture. That shouldn't even be a culture, right? Yep. But I'm really curious on how you've been processing all of this information coming out about, DNA kits and evidence not being presented or disappearing and all these things when it comes to it, because you can have a conversation about undocumented workers being in and brown people and Black people being incarcerated, but when it comes to actually the district attorney's job, where do you fall in the spectrum on crimes against women, crimes, hate crimes, those kinds of things?
Yeah. Well, all of these things are connected. These are not separate issues. The injustice that people of color feel, the injustice that working people feel, the injustice that women feel, and that victims and survivors of sexual assault feel, all flow from the same broken system, and the same series of broken and misguided choices that we have made, over the last 400 years in this country. And I want to give you an example of how deeply connected these things are. I talk a lot about the year 2018 in Travis County, just as a snapshot, as a moment in time, but really the data is the same every year. And so in 2018, APD brought forward 1,000 cases of rape in Austin to the district attorney's office. In that year, the district attorney's office prosecuted approximately 70 cases of rape. That's less than 10%.
Excuse me? You said 70 out of 1,000.
Yep.
Okay.
Less than 10% of all cases brought forward by APD. And again, that's not even talking about, cases that the sheriff's office or other law enforcement agencies were investigating. That's just APD. So 70 cases out of 1,000. In the same year, 2018, the district attorney's office prosecuted 2,700 drug cases, right? So those are the current priorities of our district attorney's office and why all of these issues are linked. I want to actually, if I can, because I do think they're so connected, I want to jump back and forth a little bit between the way we treat substance use and the way we treat violent offenses like sexual assault.
Okay.
I have said repeatedly that it's time to end the prosecution of low-level drug offenses in Travis County for a couple of reasons. First, our district attorney's office brings more drug cases every single year than any other kind of offense. It's the way they spend the majority of their time and resources. But what we know from the data and from the evidence after our 60-year war on drugs is that every day that a person struggling with substance use stays in jail, the likelihood that they will commit another crime goes up. So by using our criminal legal system to address substance use, we're actually making our community less safe because we're increasing the likelihood that people will commit crimes. That's not how substance use works. The other reason that it's time to end those offenses is because they are the greatest driver of racial disparities in our criminal justice system here in Travis County. Again, the evidence and the data are overwhelmingly clear that substance use in Travis County is consistent across race and ethnicity. That means white folks, Black folks, Latinos, we're all using drugs at about the same rate. But when you look at arrests and prosecution, it is predominantly people of color who are interacting with our criminal legal system. 30% of all arrests for drug possession are Black folks, even though the Black community only makes up 9% of our community in Travis County.
And I mean, just like to even sit on that, right? Like this image that Austin has done. I'm like, I've lived here long enough. I've been coming here long enough. I want to like seriously, the PR that this town has had in being progressive or being on the forefront of progressive issues has always baffled me, knowing truths like that, knowing that like basic level interactions of law enforcement is predominantly with Black people. So how can you justify calling yourself a progressive city if this is an issue? And now it's just odd that it's taken like sex crimes to bring a spotlight to that, along with the racial injustice of what's going on here in Austin. So it's just, everything is interwoven, and you talk about criminal justice system being used as a means for mental health, but how are you proposing the district attorney do that?
Yeah, so the first thing that the district attorney's office has to do is use our resources in a way that prioritizes our safety. That's the number one job of the district attorney's office. And again, the data is really clear that using so many of our resources on low-level drug offenses doesn't keep us safe. Instead, we should be using the majority of our resources on violent crime, prosecuting sexual assault, crimes committed by law enforcement officers against members of our community.
And when you say resources, you mean funds, or do you mean?
I mean time, money, and people.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so here's just, again, to talk about this idea about how progressive Austin and Travis County are. Every year in Travis County, a member of our community, and particularly people of color, are hurt or killed by a member of law enforcement every year. And in the last 4 years, not one law enforcement officer has been held accountable. No police officer who has killed a member of our community has been charged with the crime, and no law enforcement officer who is engaged in misconduct has been convicted of any kind of crime. That's, again, that's how we're using our resources. We're using our resources to prosecute drug offenses. So we have got to refocus our resources in the way that will keep our community most safe. It's time to end the prosecution of low-level drug offenses and focus our resources, time, money, and priorities on violent offenses that will keep our community more safe. You're on mute, Roz.
I actually want to take 2 seconds to, sorry, my fingers didn't move as fast as my mouth. I wanted to answer 2 questions from the audience. And the first one says, is the system broken, or was it constructed to deliver these results? I mean, I have my own personal opinion, whoever you are on phone, but let's ask Jose what his opinion is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm just going to be real with you guys. I mean, of course, this is what the system was designed to do. I mean, we know it historically, this system was built. It was strengthened in the wake of civil rights laws and in the wake of the abolition of slavery, to be used as a check against working class people, people of color, to prevent working people from organizing and demanding fairer wages. It was used as a check against people of color from building power. Of course, it was built this way. But I think, obviously, you've got an incredibly tuned in group of followers and people who watch and listen to this show. I think the reality is that the majority of people living in Austin, the majority of people in this country, aren't familiar with that history, because that's not what they teach us in school. They don't teach you that we built a criminal legal system. Maybe between the lines they do, but you got to look real hard. And so
I always joke they teach you a certain history, and then you have to have the curiosity enough to go to grad school to find out the truth.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And so, just to be real clear, of course, I think the system was built this way, but we have to be able to communicate the rot in our system in a way that everyone will understand. Most people expect our system to work in a different way, and it doesn't. And for them, it's broken.
Okay. And then you were talking about how Austin every year has a law enforcement or a police officer related death, or and they have yet to be prosecuted. Jenny asked, do we have any kind of capacity to end qualified immunity in Austin? And what does that look like with the DA?
Yeah, it's a great question. So qualified immunity is a function of state and federal law that can only be changed at the legislature. But the good news is this is Austin, and the state capitol is right down the street from the district attorney's office. And, I personally think that our community here in Travis County deserves a DA who is going to be a vocal advocate in the legislature for making the changes in our laws that we need to have the kind of justice system that reflects our values. And so I am personally in favor of ending qualified immunity, and have pledged that I will be down at the Capitol with every one of you, talking to our elected representatives to make sure they understand why keeping qualified immunity makes us less safe.
Yeah, it still baffles me that it's as if when you become a police officer, specifically a white police officer, you all of a sudden get this get out of jail free card, and you get paid at the same time. Like, I don't understand how we're allowing people who do these things continually get paid from public funds. So it's just it's just crazy.
I don't know if you've, this is a new story. I don't know if you saw this this morning, but there's an article both in the Austin Chronicle and the Austin American Statesman. I'm sure everyone who is watching or listening is aware of the fact that a young man named Mike Ramos was killed in our community by a law enforcement officer. And both the Austin American Statesman and the Austin Chronicle are reporting this morning that our district attorney has asked the police chief not to take any adverse employment action against him. And you talk about, the way our system treats powerful actors and the most vulnerable and how different they are. I can assure you, that if you work at the Sonic down the street and you get accused of killing someone, the district attorney is not going to call up the Sonic and ask that you not be fired.
No.
Or anyone else who works in our community. And so that's it's that approach that is part of what has to change.
Yeah. It's just, it's still, like, as a tax-paying citizen, and it's just one of those things that when you realize your money is going to oppressive forces, it's like, what can you do? And we can talk about a lot of things. I'm actually curious on how you feel about, I asked this question to the Garza, the county attorney candidate also. So there's always been this talk about building a women's facility for incarcerated individuals in Travis County. I want to know, like, how do you relate to all that and that being in play? Because Texas prisons are an industry, like, no exaggeration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm opposed to it. I've said so publicly from the beginning. It's just, I think, a poor use of our resources. They're going to spend something like $80 million on this thing. And there are still, you know, it's not like the Travis County jail is full, first of all. And second of all, you know, when we win, we're going to reduce our jail population in two ways. One, as I've said, I think it's time to end the prosecution of low-level drug offenses. That's not what makes our community safe, and that's what we're going to do. And second, it's time to end our cash bail system. So right here in Travis County, over 70% of people sitting in our jail have not been convicted of a crime.
Yeah.
The overwhelming majority and the majority of people sitting in jail are not accused of a violent offense, of a violent act. And, you know, I think it is time that if you don't pose a danger to our community, you should be working. You should be back with your family, because when we separate people from their jobs and from their families simply because they can't afford to get out of jail, that creates instability in that family, that creates instability in that neighborhood, and that makes us less safe.
And it also, like, it's odd because the stigma of incarceration, the stigma of going to jail, you know, it's almost instantly, the minute you have that on you, it's dehumanizing. And what a lot of people don't know is that when you go to jail, if you haven't been convicted of a crime, specifically a felony, if you don't have a felony charge, you can still vote.
I think that's right. Absolutely. And, you know, but we should also say that these criminal charges and convictions, they make it harder for people to get jobs.
And that's the thing, if you can vote, you should be able to get a job.
Yep, exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, you know, I think there are some steps that we need to take to reduce the population in our jail. And given that, you know, the majority of candidates running for these offices have those goals, it doesn't make sense to me that at the same time we are pursuing policies that will reduce the population of our jail, that we are spending so much money building another one.
Okay, so what level offenses does the DA's office prosecute?
The district attorney's office prosecutes felony offenses and juvenile offenses of all kinds.
Juvenile and felony, okay? So yes. Those are two big pieces of a cake. Yep. That's most definitely, and the cake does not taste good, but I'm really curious on, like, your relationships, because I talked with the county, Garza, the county attorney candidate, about relationships to Travis County and Hayes County and Baxter County and Caldwell County and all those things. How does the DA's office, in your mind's eye, look in regards to your relationship to those neighboring counties and to Texas as a whole? I know we talk about legislator, but people need to understand, like, is that legislator at the city level because you're in Austin? Is that legislature at the Travis County level? Or is that district level, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, let me just start by saying that, you know, I think what people who live in Travis County expect is for Travis County to be a leader on the issues that matter most to us. And that includes within Central Texas, and it includes across the state, and it includes across the country. So, you know, I think the district attorney's office has to be sort of setting the pace and setting the example locally about what a criminal legal system can and should look like. And I think the district attorney should be working with district attorneys in places like San Antonio and Dallas and Houston to build a more fair criminal justice system across the state. And by doing those things, we could go a long way in changing the state in its totality. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, we here in Travis County are uniquely situated and have a unique responsibility, not just to lead in our own community, but to lead in our region and to lead across the state.
Okay. How does that look, having working for Workers Defense Fund for undocumented individuals in the Austin area? Because it's just, that's another thing that like baffles me about how the area is changing, how the demographics are changing in the area. It's, you talk about the rug analogy of being swept under the rug, you know, how does the undocumented aspect, because, you know, the Supreme Court just like random, you know, so how does that relate to that population here in Austin?
Well, the first thing to say is that the undocumented community is an incredibly important part of our community here in Travis County. They are our neighbors. Our kids go to school together. They are an important part of our economy. You know, undocumented workers make up something like 20% of the service industry in Austin, 20% of hospitality, and close to 50% of the construction industry. Our community, our economy literally depends on our undocumented neighbors. And, you know, more than that, I know that they make our community more rich and more vibrant. I know that we are a stronger community because we have such an amazing immigrant community here in Travis County. And so it is important because of those facts that our undocumented community feels safe in our community, and that we have a system that doesn't penalize people more simply because of their status, simply because of where they were born. And so there are, I think, significant changes that we need to make in the district attorney's office to make sure that that is the case. When
I just get concerned because something I've noticed, like you talk about the relationships between districts and neighboring districts and neighboring cities between DAs. But like we have a situation here unique in Austin because we are the capital, and because the capital doesn't mirror the state, the city doesn't mirror the state politics, you know, just like when, you know, me and Delia were talking about the decriminalization of homelessness. Like we had a governor who could have been focusing on far more important, which we feel, issues to give the city of Austin time to get homeless people off the streets, despite the fact that the city's booming at a rate inconsistent with it. Just, there's so many layers. So how does that question happen? Like when you have someone at that level able to dip in whenever they want here at a local level?
Well, first of all, I think I believe, and I mean, I don't just believe this, but I think we have seen it, and there is tons of evidence to support the fact that the politics of our state is changing, and it is changing rapidly every day. And if we can, Roz, let's talk about politics for just a second.
Man, I'm joking. I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
Look, it's so in
I'm enjoying myself, Jose. Sorry, I'm enjoying myself.
No, please. I mean, me too. So look, in 2012, Barack Obama lost the state of Texas by 1.2 million votes. In 2016, Hillary Clinton lost the state of Texas by 800,000 votes. In 2018, that was just 2 years later, Beto O'Rourke lost the state of Texas by 214,000 votes. You can see the clear trajectory about the way the state is changing. I mean, most national polls have Joe Biden either up by a few points or in a dead heat with Donald Trump in the state of Texas. Look, I'm not naive about the politics of our Republican statewide elected officials. But all I am saying is that the politics of this state are changing every day. And I believe deep in my bones that in communities across this state, in rural Texas, in urban Texas, that people are with us. No one thinks it's fair that we're spending so much money holding people in jail just because they can't afford to get out. No one thinks that's fair. In communities all across our state have been ravaged by substance use. And communities in urban Texas don't want their children's substance use disorders treated with the criminal legal system any more than we do. And I believe that because, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because the politics of this state are changing so rapidly, that we have a responsibility to lead. And if we are willing to take on these fights, to stand for the things we believe in, I believe people will be with us. We've just got to give them something to fight for. We've got to show them a different way.
Okay. Getting a little hype. You gassing me up a little bit over here. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little jaded because of, there's like I've said and I say before, I feel like there's a mountain that I need the police to climb over without weapons in order to even begin to erase or let alone atone for the volume of hatred and oppression that have been enacted upon Black people in this country. But it's not that we don't need to, I don't understand how one can justify the use of resources that hurts people so much and not logically divert them to things that benefit so much. It's just odd that I know you talk about that trajectory of things changing. It's just, I guess I need to see it more because I travel all over Texas. So I'm very familiar with the rural population and the urban population to see that change. So, I understand that you saying you don't want a women's prison, we want to protect our workers, we want to get rid of cash bail, but like how does the DA's office ensure more mental health resources? Right. Like how? Because you're the district attorney, you're the law, you're the criminal justice system. How do we ensure that that's diverted?
Right. Well, let me say a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I think you are right to be skeptical. Our history has shown us over and over and over again that we should be skeptical. That, every time we make progress, that there are forces in this country that try to claw that progress back. And so that skepticism, I think, is very healthy. But I also think, Roz, that we are in a moment right now where the biggest mistake we can make is to be small in the scope of our aspirations. I think we have an obligation right now to dream big and to reach big and to have some faith in people that if we do, they will be with us. Now, let me answer your other question more specifically. The first job, so the district attorney is the most powerful actor in our criminal legal system. Okay. Literally get to decide who gets charged and for what every single day. I mean, we just talked about it. The district attorney just told the police chief, hey, don't fire that police officer who's killed 2 people. The most powerful actor in our criminal legal system. And so the way that we can begin to make sure that resources are spent in line with our priorities is that we have got to start to pull back that rug of our criminal legal system to expose what is underneath so that we can begin to put the resources into addressing harm, to put the resources in to preventing crime, not just punishing crime. And that's why, again, a good example, I have been really clear about this. When we win, we are going to stop the prosecution of low-level drug offenses. We're going to do that on day 1. And by doing that, we're going to pull back the rug of our criminal legal system. And I have pledged to be an advocate, an ally for demanding investment in the kind of infrastructure that we know works, in harm reduction policies, in treatment for people struggling with mental health and mental illness. But the first step is to getting the criminal legal system out of the way.
Okay.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, I'm processing. I'm just like, man,
I know.
We're good here. We're having a nice little tea time here.
I'm enjoying it. I just want to acknowledge that, that the things that we are talking about aren't easy, right? Like, it's not like flipping a switch. And I have been clear with anyone who is that if we are honest, winning this election on July 14th, and early voting's happening now, last day of early vote this week, but it starts up again on Sunday.
So Thursday, do your 4th of July on Friday and get your butt back in line on Sunday, okay?
That's right. If we're honest, winning this election is going to be the easy part. Making the changes that we are talking about, that's where the hard work is really going to be. And it's going to take every single person who has been marching in the streets, for the last 6 weeks to continue to demand change, to continue to demand action. That's the only way these changes happen. So it's going to take everyone continuing to be engaged and involved. But if they are, then we can do this.
Okay. So it's 12:45. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. So anybody who's on the session, you're able to unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can drop a chat to me, Waking Giants, in the chat window. So if you want to ask Jose a question, you better get it in when you can fit it in right now.
Well, Roz and I can just keep chatting.
All right, listen, you gotta tell me twice. I personally became aware of your campaign out of originally a conversation I was having about the women's prison plans. And it just astounded me on the use of justification by certain programs in order to justify data for a women's prison. And it was just like, no, you don't use that data to justify a prison. You use that data to justify rehabilitation and reintegration back into the community. And so it's just like the use of the data was very interesting. And then also, I knew about the prosecution of drug offenses, which is so ironic to me because Austin being South by Southwest, being ACL, being all of these mega centers for these music events and alcohol. And I mean, there's literally a cultural joke about the level of prosecution of DUIs in Austin. I mean, it's very rare to not know anybody without a DUI. Am I right or wrong?
I mean,
Austin.
I think Austin has a culture of drug use.
Drug use. And so it's just so odd that as a DA, you would increase prosecutions of drug offenses, but not realize that, again, that is a symptom of a deeper issue, And so I'm just really, curious, you talk about mental health issues. Abbott just said that he's going to give $3 million to I think we made the same face. $3 million to family and domestic abuse services. And it's like $3 million. Do you know what $3 million does for domestic and family abuse? Like, completely disconnected.
I mean, it's a fraction of what we're about to spend on a new jail for women.
I mean, like, people, can you actually process that? Like 3 million versus 80 million. And it's just, it's been interesting to talk to you because, I talked to Daly about this, there is a culture of politics, and specifically in Austin, there's a culture of a certain energy, and it's nice to hear someone with so much like passion, but also like hope in it, because I need that to counter my skepticism as I watch the city grow, there's aspects of this city that are changing for the positive, but aspects like as me as a Black woman, we're changing for a negative, you know? So it's hard for me to see my people in jail in a city that provides itself to be such a progressive city, but also like at the same time, you know, it creates human beings like you and you know, Garza, the other Garza, and then Sarah Eckhart, who actually can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, thanks, man.
Of course, no. I mean, you know, I confess being, you know, an endless optimist, and I feel like that's served me well. So,
man, I just like, I'm thinking about you being in San Antonio and what I understand San Antonio to be. So I lived in El Paso, so I think of San Antonio, the only other place where taco tote is.
that's right.
But it doesn't taste, it tastes similar, but not the same.
Yeah,
you know?
it's made
But
with a
then,
different kind of love.
Yeah, but then I love going to San Antonio because it is very, like, it's very Mexican, you know, and I love it. It's like getting a little taste of going back home to El Paso. But then you said Del Rio, and I was like, ooh, yes.
I mean, one of the things, you know, I've obviously been driving up and down I-35 for what feels like my entire life. And, you know, I'll just say that there used to be a lot more green space between San Antonio and Austin. And you know, I think it's really for the best, honestly. I think there's so much that Austin has to offer, and I think there's so much that San Antonio has to offer. And I think it makes sense for families to be able to sort of move more seamlessly between our communities. I mean, so many young people who grow up in San Antonio, you know, dream of coming to UT or just coming to live in Austin. And for families growing up in Austin to have, you know, other and different economic opportunities just down the road, I think it's great.
Yeah, more and more people are making that 45-minute commute.
Yeah, and I'll also say, you know, I mean, Austin has an incredible history, all its own, in its Latino community here in town, and its Black community. You know, I think we have to do more, not just to celebrate the rich history of the Latino and Black communities in Austin, but really to lift those communities up. And that is, I think, the sort of driving force for me getting in this race is, you know, I've spent my entire career lifting up people of color and not locking them up. And I think that's the decision on the ballot on July 14th.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, Austin owes it to brown people, Latinx people, to do what's best on behalf of them, because you can't be talking about breakfast tacos and all this other mess, because it would not exist. You can't talk about queso and you can't talk about guac and all this, because guess what? That's who it came from. You can't gentrify Cinco de Mayo. And then, you know, it's just, you have to know the history of things and things where they come from. So,
Roz, I do have a confession, which is that yesterday, Twitter convinced me that I needed a pico de gallo hamburger from Whataburger in my life. So I know, but to your point, you know,
a pico de gallo burger.
It looked good. I mean, pico de gallo makes everything good. What are you talking
about?
Not
everything, though. Like, I mean, but you know that Whataburger spicy ketchup does hit different. I can't explain it to people. It's like I leave Texas and I'm like, man, this would be so good with Whataburger spicy ketchup. What are they putting in it? So let me shut up. Let me hush my mouth. I've been converted in small ways, but not major ways. Like, I don't think
I'll let you know.
You know, let me know. I don't know if I want to know. It makes me kind of nervous. Well, it's 12:54. I'm going to let you get back to your day. Dude, it's been awesome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to see what you're going to do and how this plays out. You know, thank you for the hope. Most definitely gave me a little gas in my engine. But I really, Katie said thank you. Martha said thank you. You know, I really, really hope what you are saying. Amy said thank you. what is going to come to pass. And, you know, everybody tell everybody. This will be available on a YouTube link if you want to share it. And good luck to you, man. I hope you beat her.
Thank you.
Not
Thank
literally, but, you know, I just, you know, she's got to go.
Well, there's some important changes we need to make. And I appreciate you just helping educate voters about what's happening in our community.
Yeah, yeah. We appreciate you for having the hope and the dream, man. Take care, okay?
Hey, you too. Have a great
Bye,
one.
Jose. Bye, everybody. Check us out. WakingGiants.me. We got all kinds of goodness. We got yoga. We have storytime yoga for littles. We have Shabbat on Fridays. We have Jen Harvey, who did Raising White Kids. We had Peniel E. Joseph, who wrote The Sword and the Shield on. We have like really cool people who come on here. So just saying, check us out. Take care, guys.
Feels like it's happening here.
It is. It is.